Let's take a look at our fin adjustment tools. We've already used most of these fin adjustment settings, but there are a few that we'll definitely want to learn how to work with, just to save some time when setting up fins for multiple systems. Let's head over to animation and grab our bone tools, and we'll expand our fin adjustment rollout. Okay, so again, if we want to just go in and start to adjust our fins, we can go ahead and work with these settings here. We've already taken a look at each. Let me go ahead and show you how practical this tool is. If we were to bring back our horse, I'll press F3 to just go to wireframe mode. What we do is we'd start to adjust these settings so that the fin gives us an approximation of the volume of the creature we're rigging. So we can start to adjust each of these so that if we were to ever hide our horse, if we ever needed to, if it was way too high res and we just needed to work a bit faster, now we can do so while relying on what the fins feed back to us to know what the volume of our character would be. And so a very helpful tool. Now, speaking of performance issues with high-res characters, I'm going to go ahead and show you a really cool tool, a new feature in 3ds Max that allows us to get very fast results no matter how high-res our characters are. So it's a really cool new feature that I think you'll really enjoy and utilize often. But I'll go ahead and bring the horse back. I'll go back to wireframe mode so we could start to adjust the other fin. So with one already adjusted, I'll now go ahead and press page down to get to the next one. We can start to adjust it. We can enable each fin and start to tweak our settings, adjusting the sides, bringing those out a bit, adjusting the front. Keep in mind that you could also adjust how much the fins taper by using the start and end taper parameters. I'll go ahead and start to adjust the back fins, bringing those out a bit more. I might adjust the end taper here. Just bring this down some more. Alright, great. And then we'd want to do the same thing for the next bone. I'll press page down, and again we'll go ahead and do the same thing. So once we're finished here, I'm going to show you a way to save time on the opposite side. It's basically using our copy and paste settings, but there are some things that, again, we'll want to keep in mind before we start to use those tools. So I'll go in and adjust the front and the back. Great. Alright, so once these changes have been made, again, it would be really nice to kind of save time and mirror all of these across. Thankfully, we can do that. But watch what happens if we were to, let's say, take our femur and go ahead and copy our values. Go to the femur on the opposite side and choose paste. It's actually going to flip the result. So here, it's not too noticeable because we're basically using the same settings. But if I were to go ahead and take the tibia, go ahead and copy the value here, go to the next bone, paste, you could most certainly see that the bone objects have been flipped. That's simply because the orientation of this side has been flipped. So all we need to do is swap our values on this end. So instead of using 7.9 here as our front fin value, we'd want to use 7.9 for our back fin value. So I'm going to go ahead and swap these two. That's 7.9 and that's 7.1. And then you'd want to change these other values. So that's 15 and that's 10. So I'm going to go ahead and set this one to 10 and the next one to 15. And then finally we've come to -4 and 6. You can always average this out. So that's going to be 6 for the end taper and -4 for the end taper on the opposite side. And now you can see that we have flipped them. Now, let me show you something else. Let's say if we were to go ahead and take a bone system. Let's go ahead and create one. I'll go back to the side view with Alt-A, We'll go to the left view. We're just going to go ahead and create a quick system here. Okay, great. So from there, again, right-clicking to exit the bone tool, we'll go back to our perspective view. Now let's say if we have applied a fin to the second bone here, I'll just go ahead and enable fins and start to adjust the size, just using arbitrary values. All right, let's say if we now wanted to mirror this across these changes. Well, if we were to use the Z option instead of Y in our mirror tool settings, we notice that we would not have to adjust any of these values because, again, when we use Z, it's almost as if we are cloning the system, not flipping anything at all. So just to kind of show you this, what I'll do is temporarily just go in and disable the fin options. We'll bring them back, but I'm just going to go ahead and disable these just to kind of show you how this works. Now with the entire system selected, double-clicking on the roots, we'll go ahead and choose our mirror tool, but let's go ahead and choose the Z-axis, all right, as our flip value. Let's go ahead and now choose OK. You'll see that when we go to the second bone in this hierarchy and enable fins again, Max will remember those settings, but if I were to go ahead and copy this, go to the next side and paste, what you'll see is that we have an exact mirror. All right, again, because we didn't actually flip the mirrored bones at all. All right, so I wanted to point that out to you. Another setting that we have is relative mode. So this kind of resets everything, and we could start to adjust each parameter relatively. So if we can go in and start to adjust the size here, notice what happens once I let go. You can see that the size jumps right back to 0. All right, so we're making relative changes. All right, really straightforward, but again, I wanted to point out these fin adjustment tools to you because they're going to work out wonderfully when it's time to animate, when you just want to kind of work a bit faster. If you're working with a version of Max prior to 2013 and you don't have a feature that we'll take a look at a little bit later on, well, you could still work with this cage that we've built just to give you an idea of your character's volume. So you can get right back to animating without any concerns of if your animation is going to be accurate when the character is brought back. All right, so I'll go ahead and remove these bone systems since we're just working on the horse right now. Just go ahead and double click and remove those systems, and I'll go ahead and leave the next bone up to you. Remember, we just need to swap our values once we have copied and pasted. But in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our last rollout here, the object properties of our bone systems.